Chapter 12 of The Money Moon. This recording is in the public domain. The Money Moon, a Romance, by Geoffrey Farnell. Chapter 12, in which may be found a full, true, and particular account of the sale.
"Uncle Porges, there's a little man in the hall with a red, red nose, and a blue, blue chin."
"Yes, I've seen him, also his nose and chin, my Porges."
"But he's sticking little papers with numbers on them, all over my Auntie Anthea's chairs, and tables. Now what do you suppose he's doing that for?"
"Who knows? It's probably all on account of his red nose, and blue chin, my Porges. Anyway, don't worry about him. Let us, rather, find our Auntie Anthea." They found her in the hall, and it was a hall, here at Dapplemere, wide and high, and with a minstrel's gallery at one end. A hall that, years and years ago, had often rung with the clash of men at arms, and echoed with loud and jovial laughter, for this was the most ancient part of the manor. It looked rather bare, and barren just now, for the furniture was all moved out of place, ranged neatly round the walls, and stacked at the farther end, beneath the gallery where the little man in question, blue of chin and red of nose, was hovering about it, dabbing little tickets on chairs and tables, even as Small Porges had said. And in the midst of it all stood Anthea, a desolate figure, Bellew thought, who, upon his entrance, bent her head to draw on her driving gloves, for she was waiting for the dog cart which was to bear her, and Small Porges to Cranbrook, far away from the hollow tap of the auctioneer's hammer. "We're getting rid of some old furniture, you see, Mr. Bellew," she said, laying her hand on an antique cabinet near by. "We really have much more than we ever use." "Yes," said Bellew, but he noticed that her eyes were very dark and wistful, despite her light tone, and that she had laid her hand upon the old cabinet with a touch very like a caress.
"Why is that man's nose so awful red, and his chin so blue, Auntie Anthea?"
enquired Small Porges, in a hissing stage whisper.
"Hush, Georgy, I don't know," said Anthea. "And why is he sticking his little numbers all over our best furniture?"
"That is to guide the auctioneer."
"Where to, and what is an auctioneer?"
But at this moment, hearing the wheels of the dog cart at the door, Anthea turned, and hastened out into the sunshine.
"A lovely day it do be for driving,"
said Adam, touching his hat, "and Bess be thinking the same, I do believe," and he patted the glossy coat of the mare, who arched her neck, and pawed the gravel with an impatient hoof. Lightly, and nimbly, Anthea swung herself up to the high seat, turning to make Small Porges secure beside her, as Bellew handed him up. "You'll look after things for me, Adam?" said Anthea, glancing back wistfully into the dim recesses of the cool, old hall. "Aye, I will that, Miss Anthea." "Mr. Bellew, we can find room for you if you care to come with us." "Thanks," said he, shaking his head, "but I rather think I'll stay here, and help Adam to look after things, if you don't mind." "Then, good bye," said Anthea, and, nodding to Adam, he gave the mare her head, and off they went.
"Good bye!" cried Small Porges, "and thank you for the shilling, Uncle Porges."
"The mare is rather fresh this morning, isn't she, Adam?" inquired Bellew, watching the dog cart's rapid course.
"Fresh, sir?"
"And that's rather a dangerous sort of thing for a woman to drive, isn't it?" "Meaning the dog cart, sir." "Meaning the dog cart, Adam."
"Why, Lord love you, Mr. Bellew, sir," cried Adam with his great laugh, "there ain't nobody can handle the ribbons better than Miss Anthea. There ain't a horse as she can't drive, or ride, for that matter, not nowheres, sir."
"Hum!" said Bellew, and, having watched the dog cart out of sight, he turned and followed Adam into the stables. And here, sitting upon a bale of hay, they smoked many pipes together in earnest converse, until such time as the sale should begin. As the day advanced, people began arriving in twos and threes, and, among the first, the auctioneer himself. A jovial faced man was this auctioneer, with jovial manner, and a jovial smile. Indeed, his joviality seemed, somehow or other, to have got into the very buttons of his coat, for they fairly winked and twinkled with joviality. Upon catching sight of the furniture, he became, if possible, more jovial than ever, and beckoning to his assistant, that is to say, to the small man with the red nose and the blue chin, who, it seemed, answered to the name of Theodore, he clapped him jovially upon the back, rather as though he were knocking him down to some unfortunate bidder, and immediately fell into business converse with him, albeit jovial still. But all the while intending purchasers were arriving. They came on horse, and afoot, and in conveyances of every sort and kind, and the tread of their feet, and the buzz of their voices awoke unwonted echoes in the old place. And still they came, from far and near, until some 100 odd people were crowded into the hall. Conspicuous among them was a large man with a fat red neck which he was continually mopping at, and rubbing with a vivid bandana handkerchief scarcely less red. Indeed, red seemed to be his pervading color, for his hair was red, his hands were red, and his face, heavy and round, was reddest of all, out of whose flaming circumference 2 diminutive but very sharp eyes winked and blinked continually. His voice, like himself, was large, with a peculiar brassy ring to it that penetrated to the farthest corners and recesses of the old hall. He was, beyond all doubt, a man of substance, and of no small importance, for he was greeted deferentially on all hands, and it was to be noticed that people elbowed each other to make way for him, as people ever will before substance and property. To some of them he nodded, to some he spoke, and with others he even laughed, albeit he was of a solemn, sober, and serious nature, as becomes a man of property and substance. Between whiles, however, he bestowed his undivided attention upon the furniture. He sat down suddenly, and heavily, in chairs. He pummelled them with his plump, red fists, whereby to test their springs. He opened the doors of cabinets, he peered into drawers, he rapped upon tables, and altogether comported himself as a thoroughly knowing man should, who is not to be hocussed by veneer, or taken in by the shine and splendor of well applied beeswax. Bellew, watching all this from where he sat screened from the throng by a great carved sideboard, and divers chairs, and what nots, drew rather harder at his pipe, and, chancing to catch Adam's eye, beckoned him to approach. "Who is that round, red man yonder, Adam?" he inquired, nodding to where the individual in question was engaged at that moment poking at something or other with a large, sausage-like finger. "That," replied Adam in a tone of profound disgust, "that be Mr. Grimes o' Cranbrook, sir. Calls hisself a corn chandler, but I calls him, well, never mind what, sir, only it weren't at corn chandling as he made all his money, sir, and it be him as we all work and slave for, here at Dapplemere Farm." "What do you mean, Adam?" "I mean as it be him as holds the mortgage on Dapplemere, sir." "Ah! And how much?" "Over £3,000, Mr. Bellew, sir," sighed Adam, with a hopeless shake of the head, "and that be a powerful lot of money, sir." Bellew thought of the sums he had lavished upon his yacht, upon his 3 racing cars, and certain other extravagances. £3,000, $15,000, it would make her a free woman, independent, happy, just $15,000, and he had thrown away more than that upon a poker game, before now. "Lord!" exclaimed Adam, "the very sight o' that theer Grimes's pig eyes a staring at Miss Anthea's furniture, do make the old Adam rise up in me to that amazing extent, Mr. Bellew, sir. I just look at him a thumping and a pounding at that theer chair." Saying which, Adam turned, and, elbowing his way to where Mr. Grimes was in the act of testing the springs of an easy chair, he promptly, and as though forced by a struggling mob, fell up against Mr. Grimes, and jostled Mr. Grimes, and trod heavily upon the toes of Mr. Grimes, and all with an expression of the most profound unconsciousness and abstraction, which, upon the indignant Corn chandler's loud expostulations, immediately changed to a look of innocent surprise.